You're listening to Ramble with Intent. I'm your host, Lisa Szabon-Smith, visual strategist, advocate, ambition guide, and public speaker. I'm here for the dreamers, the doers, and all of the possibilities in between. Through my experiences as a world-class athlete, coach, graphic designer, wife, parent, and all the other life experiences that we have, and the amazing stories with my incredible storytellers, we get to connect how advocacy is not that far off in our everyday lives. Let's ramble. All right, friends, we've got an amazing one here. This one's for all of the astrology curious, the intuitive questioning, the ones who have a knowing but just don't quite understand, kind of like me. Then this is for you. We have the amazing Lori Hollick on here, and she is diving into solar flares and x-rays and everything else that just seems to be going on in the background of our world. And we get a little bit of a forecast for what's coming up in the end of April and May. Enjoy. Oh, okay. Well, Lori Hollick, I want to say welcome, and I'm so happy to meet you officially now, virtual face-to-face. We've had lots of conversation on social media, and I think let's dive in here. So you are an intuitive, correct? Yes. Okay. Yes. And can you educate us on a little bit about yourself, but also what style or what type of intuitive you are? Because I'm starting to understand there's a variety.
There is. And here's the thing. I always say to people, everybody has psychic powers. I mean, we are all spiritual beings. We all have these powers. It's just how much are we working with them? Because so often in the society now, as we're raised to suppress these powers and to kind of ignore our own intuition. So I always had these, feelings when I would be around people. Of course, when you're talking with people, you always can know when people are lying to you.
Yeah.
That always made me feel weird. Like, why are you lying? Why are you putting on this face? And so I got really good at not reacting. I could talk to somebody and just kind of go along with their story, where I didn't react and I didn't kind of call them out on their lies and things like this. And so kind of throughout my life, that's, kind of how it came to me. It came to me just as these knowings. So I just had to start leaning into it and had to just start getting to the point where I'm like, okay, well, this is me, and I better just start working with it. Yeah. So that's kind of how it comes to me, is in those ways, is it's more just a knowing. I do have prophetic dreams and things like that, but it's more of a claircognizance with me, where I just have knowings that I have no idea how I know them.
Okay. And so I guess the analytical brain wants to ask, do you feel it in your body, or is it like it's similar to, it's just information, 2 + 2 is 4, and that's the knowing, or how does it transpire?
Both. Okay. Sometimes it is just a knowing, where I just have a thought pop into my head. Like sometimes I'll be in a conversation with somebody and they'll be going through a traumatic experience, and I just go into almost a channel and I just start speaking to them in a way that hits them so deeply. And then afterwards, I'm like, I have no idea where that came from.
Yeah.
So sometimes it does come in ways like that, but sometimes it is a full body feeling, especially if it's something where I'm about to do something and then all of a sudden it's like something physically stops me, where it's like, you're not going that way. You're not going to go that direction. Yeah. I have that driving a lot of times, and it saved me from numerous accidents where I just feel like, I'm supposed to go this route. And then all of a sudden I just feel like, no, I have to go another direction. And I don't know why, but I've learned throughout my life that I just better listen to that. Yeah. So sometimes it does come on as a full body reaction as well.
So have there been times where you've ignored it and it's been like a full awareness that you should have listened instead?
Absolutely. And I think we all have. I think we all have a very strong intuitive guidance in us, that I think all of us can look back at things in our life that I knew. You know, like I knew I shouldn't have gotten into a relationship with that person. I had these red flags off the bat, or, I knew my friend was lying to me, or I knew that was a bad financial decision, or, I was supposed to go grocery shopping that day and I just felt like I shouldn't. And then the whole day went bad. I had a flat tire, whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? I think we all have had those experiences where we knew deep down that there was something inside of us telling us not to do it, and we ignored it, and we denied our own intuitive knowing,
Yeah.
and we did it anyway. And then the universe, that's what I call the universal bitch slaps, right? Where the universe kind of comes back down and goes, you're off your path, back into alignment.
Yeah.
I have had a lot of those throughout my life, and this is why I trust it so deeply now. Where when I do get those intuitive knowings, and even when I don't know why it's leading me in that direction, my logical mind is telling me like I have to have all the answers, and my intuition is going, no, just go.
Okay.
I don't know why it's leading me there, but I have to now trust that, it's going to take me to somewhere that's more beneficial for me than where I'm at.
Amazing.
So I've learned to trust that deeply.
Okay. So now that we've accepted that this is who we are and this is the path that we're needing to take, where have you taken it now for your life and for what you currently do?
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of what I do is I have gone through so many experiences in my life that have taught me to master my own knowing.
Okay.
And so when I'm talking about self-mastery, what I'm really talking about is how do we keep centered and aligned within ourselves when everything else around us is going into chaos?
$1 million question.
Right. And so the more that you start working with your own intuitive knowing and your own energy, and you can learn to manipulate your own energy, because let's face it, we're basically biochemical processing plants inside, right? Like every emotion that we have is excreting a chemical inside of our body.
Yeah.
So the more that we can start to manipulate that within our own body, if somebody's coming at me in a raging way, it's not going to throw me off my center because I know that it has nothing to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
Really learned through all of these experiences to really master my own emotions, my own energy. And so now I really, because I have viscerally met myself so deeply, I now can help other people do the same. And when other people can see that you can see them at a soul level, it makes them feel connected in a way that they've never truly felt connected to people before.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, there's a lot of healing in that, right? Because so often we externalize things in our life, and it's truly from a disconnection from our own soul and to others.
Yeah.
This is where I come in and I really help people get back centered with their true soul expression
Mm-hmm.
and to learn how to master their own energy so that it doesn't affect, how things are going on in their life. And then, of course, I started with astrology, which has been a complete game changer in my life. And I now use that as a tool to help other people kind of walk through their path as well. Astrology is a great tool to give people a visual, clear knowing of kind of their life map.
Okay.
So this is kind of how I've learned to kind of take these intuitive nudges and this soul mastery that I've kind of been on this journey of. And now I just figure, I've met myself so deeply, I might as well help other people do the same. Just come back into connection with themselves.
Amazing. And it's like astrology is one of those, I don't know, gateways, if you will. It's the accepted component in society where we still can read our horoscopes. And yes, that's very surface level, but it's what I think probably initiates the human curiosity into what else is there? And then people find you. So how long have you been studying astrology? Because I mean, I've read a few surface level books just about me because we're egotistical beings. And then I've said, that's enough. I don't need to learn anymore. So how long have you been studying astrology? And I guess how deep would you encourage people to actually get into it without it having to become a career?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been attracted to astrology pretty much my whole life, but
Okay.
on a surface level when I was younger. So I was always the kid that was reading horoscopes in the newspaper, and I was doing compatibility tests with everybody that I ever knew of, what is a Cancer and an Aries together and things like that. And then I often say that you don't find astrology, it finds you.
Okay.
Because it's a very deep, soulful tool to use. And so you really have to be ready for it to embrace it fully, because otherwise it just will go over your head and you're, like you said, our egotistical mind doesn't connect with it because it is truly a soul level knowledge, right?
Mhm.
So after my mom passed away about 7 years ago, astrology kind of came into my realm. I couldn't even tell you how I came like across it fully. I was in this full searching for the meaning of life point after losing my mom at such a young age. And at that point, it just came across my radar and I was absolutely obsessed.
Okay.
It became my night and day. I started studying thousands of charts to just try to see the intricacies of each chart and what was different and what was the same. And
Mhm.
astrology really is knowing patterns. And
Okay.
so through pattern recognition and knowing history of how energetic expressions kind of play out in history, that's really kind of where my study began. And then, of course, through studying my own natal chart, this really was the deepest healing that I had ever been on.
Oh, wow.
So I'd kind of been on a healing journey for a long time. And, I had done all the things, the cognitive behavioral therapies and kind of the talk therapy and, all of the things that everybody kind of knows about. But astrology was really what kind of blasted open everything for me. And this is why I now help other people heal through astrology. And the connections that I have with people in these consultations, the trauma that is released and the energy blockages that we remove,
Mhm.
they're life-changing. It's absolutely life-changing. And I really hold space for people in these consultations because we're moving through an immense amount of trauma. Because the amount of, like I said, soul recognition, it's a remembrance at a cellular level where they feel like I knew that I was here for that. And it's this validation to them that what they've always felt that they knew about themselves was true.
Yeah.
And so it really is an ancient art form. And this is why they try and hide it from us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it is so powerful. And I mean, the JP Morgan had this quote a long time ago where he said, millionaires don't use astrology, but the billionaires do.
Yeah.
And it is true. I mean, all of the elites, so to speak, they all use it. And then they shun it for us, mainstream folks to say, oh, it's not real. And, it's all of this crap that they say about it. But it's
Well,
it's very, very powerful tool. And it's not only to know yourself at a deep level, it's also to understand how is the energy right now affecting me,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This is where divine timing comes in, where we can kind of look at things and know that, you may have a move coming up, or you may be starting a new business, or your business may flourish, or maybe you're going to be getting pregnant and have a child, or meeting your soulmate and getting married. I mean, these are all things that we can see the potential of in an astrology chart. So it really is, it allows you to kind of work with the energy instead of resist it. Because when we're flowing with the energy, our life just moves smoother,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we just don't resist things. So I always say that it's almost like having these neon bright guideposts where it's like, stay within the lines,
Go
right?
here.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess would you say that you kind of went through an existential crisis through that process?
Many.
Many. Okay.
Yes. I often say that awakening isn't a light switch.
Mm.
It is a spiral, and we go through numerous awakenings in this lifetime. And so there's new levels. And so, I've gone through many, many kind of existential crisis where they're ego deaths, where an identity that we have built up, it has to be shed. So
Yeah.
we're constantly shedding, we're constantly evolving as humans. And it's difficult. I mean, going through these processes are not easy because our ego mind identifies with these characters that we have built for ourselves.
Yeah.
And this is where our soul is trying to pierce through to say, hey, that's not who you are. Like, let's get back into alignment with why we're actually here. But we resist that so much because we're so attached to the external world that we've built up around us.
Yeah.
And this is kind of right now where everybody is having so much difficulty because we're disconnected from our inner knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're too attached to the externalized world.
Oh, 100%.
And this is kind of the difficulties and challenges that we're moving through now. But I think, like I said, the fact that I have met myself so deeply and moved through these challenges so many times on my own, I'm really able to hold space for everybody that's now just going through it, because I know how it feels. I know how challenging this is and how painful it is. It feels like you're dying. It truly does feel like you're dying. And so there's a real spiritual component to this. That we're now just starting to get reconnected as a society with our spiritual knowing, so to speak.
It's probably also, it's the first time in their life where they felt seen and heard.
100%.
And you can see our starvation for that through all the external stuff that is going on, but we have to see ourselves first.
100%. And it's also understanding some of the inner workings and understanding how their life has kind of mapped out, because everybody is holding so much trauma at a cellular level. And a lot of times people are holding this density so deeply, they don't know how to release it. And so they come to me, and through these sessions, I help them release this trauma, and it just floods out of them. It comes up to the surface so strongly. And it's fascinating because not only does it come to the surface, but because I can help them move through it, very often they'll integrate it right within the session. They'll feel activated. And by the end of the session, they feel like they could run through a wall. They're so activated. They're like, I'm going to start the business. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, right? So it's amazing. It truly is a gift to be able to give to people. And the ripple effects of knowing this about yourself, it affects every area of your life.
Yeah.
So I'm really just honored to hold space for people in this way and to create such a sacred container for them to come to me with such trust, to be able to help them through these periods that they're in, that it's very discombobulating going through this right now.
I can imagine. And I mean, when you start thinking about cells and atoms, and it's all quantum physics in the end, that leads me into this whole Schumann resonance chart thing. Can you please, I understand it, but I don't understand it. Can you please educate me on what it is, how it originated, and where we're at? Because there's a lot happening right now.
Yeah, that's a great question. I post about this a lot, which is where
I'm learning, yeah.
And so the reason that I'm posting about it, it's to give a visual to people. So when I'm constantly telling them that we have these high frequencies coming in, most people can't conceptualize that in their brain. They don't know what that means. So when I'm posting these charts, it gives them a visual concept of what I'm talking about, because you can actually see it, right? And this is, again, just another tool, just like astrology, that we can use to understand the energetics that are happening around us at all times. And so what the Schumann resonance is it essentially is a monitoring system around the world of our electromagnetic sphere. So we have what we call, it's the Earth's heartbeat, essentially. So there's pulses that are constantly going through the Earth of high frequencies that are coming from lightning strikes as well as solar flares. And so there was a physicist back in 1952 that mathematically predicted the Schumann resonance, and it's actually named after him. And so what it is there's monitors all around the world, and then they take the average of those monitors and conceptualize them into one chart. And those are the charts that I'm posting.
Okay.
And so what we normally see is we naturally, it's called brain entrainment. And so we naturally will vibrate at the same level as the earth. Okay. And they've done tons of scientific experiments where they've actually taken humans and put them into a room that was completely different of a frequency of the earth, and they got very deathly sick.
Okay.
So when we are not connected to the earth frequency, it affects us on a physical level and on a mental brain level.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why it's very important not to resist these changes right now, because it will make you sick. So the whole earth right now is ascending in frequency.
Okay.
And the Schumann resonance, it normally bases at 7.83 hertz, which is like a theta brainwave state in our mind. But we are getting these spikes of high frequencies coming in that is taking us to 30, 40, 50 hertz, which is taking us all the way to, above gamma rays.
Yeah.
So it's incredible when these spikes come in, how much it physically is affecting our body, and our cells are actually vibrating faster. Mm-hmm. So it's creating this friction in our body. And through that, we're getting different brainwave types. It's affecting our heart rate variability, our hormone secretions. It affects everything with how we think, how we feel, our emotions. And so this is why integrating into this energy and grounding into the earth and getting out into the sunlight, increasing your hydration and minerals, it helps you integrate with this. Okay. Because the entire earth, every single organism on the earth, from plants, animals, humans, everything, we're all ascending at one time. So the Schumann resonance is really just an incredible tool to be able to map this on a day-to-day and to visually be able to show people what these frequencies actually look like in amplitudes. Okay. So we measure the amplitudes and the frequency across time of how intense the frequency is coming in on a day-to-day.
Okay. And so then we've got also lots of solar activity, solar flares that are coming in as well. And so you said those affect the Schumann resonance. So I'm taking a big guess here that when it's like a big solar flare, then the frequency spikes up. Yes.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we see that where we'll notice that a solar flare will come in, and I'm mapping those as well because we have tools to map those. Mm-hmm. So we'll see a solar flare come in, and then, within 10 to 12 hours, the Schumann resonance spikes.
Okay, in response.
It's fascinating. We're getting to our solar maximum now, which is the peak of a solar cycle. Okay. And that is going to coincide with the April eclipse. So we're increasing in solar activity. The waves of solar flares are going to be coming in faster. So we're going to be getting them more frequently, and they're going to be getting more intense. So this is why we're feeling it so deeply in our body, where everybody's feeling the intensity of this energy right now.
Mm-hmm. So on a, oh my gosh, words, I'm so sorry. On the grand scheme, with the sensations that people are feeling, is it similar, or is everybody just like this whole disarray of different emotions and physiological responses?
Yeah, that's a great question. And everybody is kind of feeling this differently. I mean, as a collective, we are all ascending, but depending on the consciousness level and how embodied somebody is, that will affect how one person is feeling compared to the next. So we will sometimes, if you have already integrated and you're kind of already in a higher frequency, then the higher blast days where the frequencies are heightened, you're going to feel better because it's more aligned to your current state. And against days where we're going through deep purges, we'll feel really like you're just kind of moving through mud. The opposite is also true. Somebody who is still at a lower consciousness, that their frequency is still lower, the high blast days feel very uncomfortable for them. They feel a lot of anxiety. They feel heat in their body, like they want to crawl out of their skin. And there's a lot of ear ringing and headaches and zapping and vibrations, aches, body aches, and even what we're calling an ascension flu, even where, these deep purges are bringing flu-like symptoms and colds, coughs, running nose. And that's all just this heightened energy blasting this density out of our body. So everybody is experiencing this differently. Although we are all ascending, we're all having different symptomology from this on a day-to-day period.
Okay.
And this is why it's important to just give yourself and others grace right now, because a lot is happening under the surface for people that a lot of times they can't consciously explain what's going on with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like having a kid and then being like, I don't want to do this. And you ask them why, and they say, I don't know. I just don't want to. Right. It's like they're still in tune to their body, but they can't verbalize what it is that's going on.
Yeah, and this is why I have gotten to the point now where I'm posting about this stuff every day.
Mm-hmm.
As the flood of messages that I'm getting on a daily basis from people that are saying, thank you so much. This explains why I didn't sleep last night, or this explains why my kids are acting out right now, or, thank you for putting words to what I'm feeling because I couldn't explain it. And so I've started to really post this in my stories every day to help people put words to their experiences,
Mm-hmm.
because I never want anybody to feel like they're alone or that they're going crazy or that what they're feeling is wrong in some way. And to give people a sense of knowing that there's a connection to it, that there's meaning, and that other people are also experiencing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so the eclipse in April, when is that?
April 8th.
April
So our
8th.
first eclipse is March 24th.
Okay.
But April 8th is the second eclipse, and it's a total solar eclipse, and it's the most potent eclipse of the entire year. We are all going to feel it very deeply, and we already are feeling it. We feel eclipses start to come in about 6 weeks prior.
Oh, wow. Okay. I had no idea.
Yeah, and eclipses will actually ripple out for about 6 months. So even though the eclipse is happening on April 8th, the effects of that will ripple out throughout your life for about the next 6 months.
Wow. That's crazy. So then how do eclipses impact humanity?
Yeah, eclipses are very potent karmic destined points in our evolution, and they create fated permanent change in our life. So often, we will hear people talk about, I couldn't make this decision, or I know that I'm supposed to be doing something else. And then all of a sudden, something in their life happens very suddenly, and it's like the rug gets pulled out and they're forced to do it. And that typically is an eclipse energy that's coming in. So about every 6 months, we go through fated changes in our life where we are almost molded down a corridor of our soul path. And so eclipses really just align us back to our soul path. And the further you are away from your soul path, the more kind of abrupt, so to speak, that will kind of come in and force you back. But if you're really just listening to your internal guidance and you're kind of already close to your soul path, they're not as severe. But most times, I say a lot to people that if ever you can't make a decision in your life, just wait and the universe will do it for you.
So
And
sure.
that's typically when a planet will transit your planets or an eclipse comes in. So eclipses really create permanent change. And often we see it mostly around relationships. That's where most people will notice big changes in their life, where eclipses will eclipse things in and out of your life, and they'll eclipse people in and out of your life. Around the time
of it that way.
Yeah. Around the time of an eclipse, you'll often have fated meetings and opportunities, just like us today.
Yeah.
And we will also see where fated endings happen, where all of a sudden relationships break up. And it's also been known to have a lot of, unfortunately, people passing away near eclipses too, where in their soul contract, they have chosen that is the time that they decide to transition out. Okay. So we often will see that as well.
Okay. Oh, so many things to think about. So someone who might be wanting to look towards changing their life or advocating for themselves for a better future for their family, their community, themselves, is this a good time to start putting those intentions and desires out there as well? Or is it kind of like, hey, universe, you're in control, so let's go?
Yeah, I think that it's always a blend of both.
Okay.
I think that although there is divine timing with the universe, I think that we are sovereign beings, and everything in the energy right now is teaching us to take our own power back. We
Okay.
spend our whole life externalizing our power and just giving it up to everybody else.
Yeah.
So I do think that it's important to, if you're feeling that internal guidance to make changes or pivot, it's important to start taking actions towards that,
Mhm.
and allowing the universe to meet you there, right? We're not here just to float around. We really are here to learn how to manipulate our own energy and to put ourselves on the frequency of what we're desiring,
Okay.
right? Because so often you'll hear people talk about manifesting, and I don't really believe in manifesting. I believe in aligning yourself to the frequency of what you want.
Yeah.
Um, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it's important that we really take action on these things, that we're not just waiting for some God in the sky to come down and kind of save us from ourselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So start with self-awareness, self-understanding, and then really connect with what your soul and your really, I guess, in layman's terms, for people who might not be that connected, with what your curiosities and passions are. And that likely will direct you in the right direction.
100%. And everybody is connected to a certain degree,
Yeah.
but a lot of people have felt so uncomfortable in their own body that they have dissociated through their life.
Yeah.
And the energy that is coming in right now is really forcing us all back into our body.
Okay.
And so this is uncomfortable for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
like you said, the more that we get creative and just kind of learn to do new things and pour ourselves into anything that we're kind of called towards, that's where we really discover our path,
Mhm.
is by the feedback from what we're doing. So it's just about learning to pivot. I mean, there's lots of things that we can do, and you don't know that you don't want to do it until you do it and go, it wasn't really for me,
Very
right?
true. Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So I
always
think,
encourage people who, if they're in a sense of loss, go back to what you love to do between ages 4 and 14, reconnect with those. And then, if not through that process, you will find that you loved them. Why did you leave them? Or you will identify where your next direction is going to be. Because that's all before we became so edited and protected or protective of ourselves and how we interact with the world as well.
yeah, I love that. I love that so much because I think back to how I was as a child, and I was such a teacher and always wanting to learn and things like that. So I think that that's great advice to tell people to go back to who they were as a kid and just kind of rediscover what they loved.
Yeah, and it's a point of comfort too, right? It's not terrifying. You're not saying go skydiving. So they get to
Right.
just go back to what they once knew and have a reconnection moment as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then let's look ahead into April. We're entering into April, into May. What can astrology tell us to be looking ahead to or even be cautious of?
Yeah, this year is really a pivotal year for us. So the entire year of 2024, we're going to have waves of really intense energy coming in, and that's going to bring waves of events worldwide on a world stage, but
Okay.
also in our own personal lives. And so in April, of course, we're in eclipse season, but we also have one of the biggest transits of the entire year on April 20th, which
Oh,
is when Jupiter meets Uranus.
okay.
And Jupiter is this big expander, it's a magnifier, it expands everything it touches.
Okay.
And Uranus is like a revolutionary, great awakening planet. And its energy is kind of foreign. It kind of is like an alien energy that comes out of nowhere. We don't really know where this energy comes from. And so this is a really revolutionary year. This is a once in 14-year transit. But this is the first time in our life that Jupiter and Uranus will be meeting in the sign of Taurus. So it's really a big deal for us. And it's really going to set the stage for a lot of new technologies to come, new innovations, new advances. And we're really going to see the ramifications of this ripple out over years to come.
Oh, wow.
So that's a big transit that's happening this year. And it's going to bring a lot of really sudden insights and epiphanies into people's minds. And it's also a freedom energy where Uranus wants us to seek freedom and be an individual and kind of allow our genius to come to life. So
Okay.
we're really going to be noticing people wanting to break out of the norm and, any kind of stagnancy or box that they've been built around them. They're really going to want to just break free from all of that. And it's really just going to be a time in our life that this energy is going to come in and have us believing that we can actually reach these dreams that we want. And it's a massive amount of high energy coming in. Uranus is like our higher mind. So
Okay.
we're going to notice a lot of awakenings for
Yeah.
people that are all of a sudden these layers of awakenings that we were talking about. We're going to notice the veils kind of being ripped back a lot for people and people kind of coming into these sudden realizations of things. And then in May, the middle of May, Jupiter will move on and move into Gemini. And that is really going to bring a lot of intellectual abilities online. But we're going to notice a lot of people wanting to debate online, and it's going to kind of be more communicative and more socialized. But the opposite flare of this is we're also going to see a lot of mental health issues come to light with this.
Okay.
So we will notice throughout the rest of the year that mental health is going to be a really big deal for this year. And of course, a lot of events on the world stage are going to happen that are really going to kind of force people to their knees in a lot of ways. And so we're going to have a challenging year of waves, and it's going to bring, some challenges, but there's going to be a lot of really positive things happen.
Mhm.
And I always say the other side of this is going to be glorious. It's just we kind of have to walk through the fires first, right?
Yeah, it's like you got to go through hell in order to get to the other side first, and life is icky, and here we go, right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to Jupiter and Uranus. I'm sorry, I grew up calling it Uranus, so it's gonna be like childhood humor is a problem. By chance, were they in transit in 2013 then? They must have been 14 years ago.
14 years ago, they would have been coming into a connection. 12 years ago, Jupiter was
Bad
in
math, but
Gemini. So we're going back to, if you think back 12, 14 years ago, kind of what are the themes that were going on in your life? You're going to kind of notice a lot of those kind of same themes coming up again because they're transiting the same area of your chart. So
okay.
of course, different aspects now because we've got other planets that are in different areas of your chart as well. So it won't be exactly the same,
Okay.
but you will start to notice the same types of themes coming up.
Okay. Yeah. And it's all patterns in the end, correct? It's understanding the timeline of the transits and then seeing the pattern of recognition that happens as they go through the same transit.
Yeah, and we also notice this with the moon cycles. If you start to watch the moon cycle, the moon moves in and out of a sign about every 2.5 days. So this is something that I often will tell people to do is just watch the moon cycle around your chart and start noticing that on certain days when the moon is in, say Gemini, that it's affecting your chart and your planets in a certain way that it's going to make you feel a certain way. And of course, other planets will affect your life too. But the moon is a really good way to kind of judge. Every time the moon kind of moves over my Mars, I just kind of have a day where I'm just a bit irritated. I'm a bit angry, right? A bit more emotional.
Yeah.
Like I have 2 days per month that I just know I feel like I just want to be alone. So I like mark those out on my calendar. I don't do calls that day. I don't, right? Because I just know that that's my energy, that when the moon moves through a specific part of my chart, I just want to be more internalized those couple days in the month. So again, it's just about flowing with your own energy. And this is a way to build self-awareness into yourself and know how you feel on certain energy days. And it allows you to flow with it instead of resist it.
And work around it or work in partnership with it instead of like what we understand right now is the traditional, this is the block of time that I work, so I must work during this block of time. And it doesn't always work that way. And in men as well, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And this is where the really toxic hustle culture has come from, where it's like just hustle all the time and show up every single time. But that doesn't actually respond to your energy. And you're just constantly in resistance to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's again, dissociating from your own energetic knowing. So if I know that certain days in the month, I just want to be more internalized because I'm more creative, I can get back more in tune. Why wouldn't I take that for myself as a strength
Yeah.
to like some of my best gifts and knowings and projects that I've created have come on those days
Yeah.
where I've told myself, like, given myself permission to go, these are the days where I'm just going to kind of be in my own
Yeah.
and just not around other people's energy.
Yeah.
And the opposite is also true. I mean, we always have days where that's a day of the month where you know you're going to be super energetic and you can kind of do 2 days in one. And so I think flowing with your energy is always more beneficial than trying to resist it because you get more out of it, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, when the word resistance and resentment are so close to each other too, there's a reason. It makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that is a great point because we do start to resent things when we're in resistance to them.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it's
Yeah.
hard, right? So
Yeah.
it's all in balance, and it's all trying to understand and have that, like I said, that self-awareness, that self-understanding. And from there, when you can operate from that, then as you said, flow, and things start moving much more in flow and in alignment with how really the energy of the world and yourself require you to as well.
Yeah, 100%. We're moving into a time now where we're in such high frequency energy that if we're not listening to our own inner knowing, we're in such a resistance to the energy and so unintegrated and disconnected, we will actually start to feel physically sick from that. So you're being forced back into our body now and to start flowing and integrating with the energy of the earth and our own energy, which is actually going to heighten us and heal us at the same time.
Yeah.
So we're going to start to notice that people are almost going to start to age backwards through this energy.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Right? That's the thing is that we're getting to the point now where it's so obvious though of who isn't doing that, of who isn't doing the inner work. And I've talked a lot about this timeline split that we're in, and it's just now so obvious of who's kind of moving forward into the new energy and who's really just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And so when we're not integrated, it feels gross. It feels disconnected, and we do start to see a lot of physical sick symptoms that are coming out of this for people, and it's really unfortunate.
Yeah. And so for the most part, like, we are tribal partnership beings. So one of us might be integrating and moving forward, but maybe our partner isn't. So how do we help them? Or, I mean, we want to fix, we want to encourage, we want to bring them along. However, it's their own journey. So how do we hold ourselves from trying to be the fixer, but also provide them the space and the encouragement to continue to move forward?
Yeah, this is the number one thing that I get asked is this question of how do I bring all my loved ones along?
Yeah.
And this is the most difficult part of this journey that we're going through, is because we want to bring everybody that we love with us. And unfortunately, we don't have the control over them. And we have been raised in a very codependent society where we have been taught to outsource our own power and to somehow believe that we can fix somebody else or that we can save them.
Yeah.
When the reality is we can't. And it really is a sense of soul abandonment and codependency by going outside of ourselves to think that we can somehow change another person. Because true unconditional love is really looking at that other person and saying, I see where you're at right now, and I'm going to love you where you are, even if it means at a distance.
Yeah.
And it is so difficult for our human mind because we don't want to detach from people that we love so dearly.
Yeah. We don't want to be blamed for abandonment or other things as well.
Right. And these are really deep wounds that as a collective we're healing right now, of self-worth wounds and abandonment and rejection wounds, because it is this deep feeling inside of us of, well, maybe if I just abandon my own needs and stay with you at where you're at, that I'll be okay. But this in turn is, it actually will make you sick, because if your body is ascending and then you're choosing to stay at a lower frequency with your partner because that's where they're at, you're actually taking on their karma.
Yeah.
And so you will now start to get really physically sick. And it's a really difficult period that we're going through.
Yeah.
The thing that I would say, though, that would be a bit encouraging is this isn't all lost, okay? The whole thing that we're learning right now is to step into our own power, to take our own power back and only worry about where am I at, that self-mastery, right? Because you can only control your consciousness.
Yep.
Here's the wonderful part. Your consciousness affects everybody you come into contact with.
Resonance.
Okay? Yeah. So the more that you can work on your inner knowing and healing your rejection wounds and self-worth wounds and not wanting to externalize your own power to say, I'm going to leave myself and abandon myself so you don't abandon me, right? Because that's so often what people do is, I don't want you to abandon me, so I'll abandon me, right?
Yeah.
So we're learning we have to stay empowered and embodied now, where we are taking our power back, standing in our true sovereignty. And the more that we do that, one of two things is going to happen. It's either going to inspire those around us, and they're going to see us vibrating and being fully in love and having abundance flow to us, and they're going to want that.
Yeah.
So they're going to be inspired to start doing their own inner healing. Yeah. Or the opposite is going to happen, where they're going to be irritated by us, and they're going to distance themselves because they're not willing to do the inner work. And we can't control that. If that's their choice, that is their choice on their journey. And it doesn't mean that maybe later on they don't figure out how to do the inner work and meet you at the same spot later. But for right now, that is the journey that they've chosen. And we have to love people where they're at right now and hold grace for them, but not abandon ourselves to want to stay with them if that's what they're choosing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And now you say that, I'm like, man, I can see it. I see so many people that are on just all those different planes of transformation or growth, or even choosing, physically, literally choosing to sit and stay in their filth and not grow or learn or expand from it. And it is so difficult having to watch that, but knowing like, that's on you. It's not on me. I'll support you. I'll love you. I'll be here when you need to ask questions. But until that happens, you're on your own.
Yeah. And I mean, here's the hard part about it is anybody that is highly evolved or conscious. Okay. Now, nobody is like fully enlightened on this earth. Nobody.
Yeah, we're not God.
Working our way there. Okay. So I don't want to come off like some rah-rah, like we're, highly spiritually evolved beings. Like, we're human. Okay. Yeah. We're still human. We're still learning and working with ourselves on this planet. But those of us that have kind of gone through this spiral of awakening, it's only been through suffering. Yeah. It's only been through pain. And so, unfortunately, the sad part is the people that are choosing to still sit in the shit, it's just simply they haven't felt enough pain yet. Yeah. That's what it is. And it's sad because we can see that, and we so badly want to pull them out and save them from the pain that we know is coming. But we can't do that, because something that I often say is, don't ever rob somebody of their rock bottom, because the rock bottom is what they need to have the bounce. Okay. Because if they never hit rock bottom, they will never bounce. Yeah. So don't rob that from them. Okay. Because truly loving somebody sometimes means distancing yourself and allowing them to feel the consequences of their choices, and allowing them to hit that rock bottom. And then we can come in and catch them on the bounce.
Yep.
Right.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So often right now, there is a lot of people that they're stuck in relationships that they know that they shouldn't be in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so familiar to them. They go, well, I'm just going to stay here because it's what I know. But unfortunately, that is going to get even more difficult as time goes on. And it's also going to get more challenging to try to get out of them. But again, it's everybody is on their own journey right now. And we just have to hold grace for people right now and love them where they're at. But also, to not abandon ourselves for
Yeah.
our own evolution of the soul path that we want to go on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's places and meetings that we're supposed to have in this life. And if we don't choose to keep walking forward, we're never going to show up to the places that we're meant to. So
Mm-hmm.
it's important that we don't constantly be looking behind us at who's not coming, but steer forward and focus on who are you meeting? Who are you going to connect with? What are the opportunities that are going to come into your life that can completely change your life?
Yeah. Who's waiting for you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So how I have a question. I just don't know how to formulate the words, but in the name of, I guess let's go with frequency. In the name of frequency, and I said the word resonance, how do we find those soul connections along the way? Or I mean, do we just vibrate within the structure that we are and the level of energy that we are, and we're then attracting people that are on the same plane at that time? But then what happens when we level up, or even in some cases level down? What happens? What's that process?
Yeah. So we're always attracting like versus like, right? So, people talk about the law of attraction. That's really all that it is
Okay.
you can't you can't come into contact with anything that's not already on your frequency and connect with it. You're
Mm,
also It'll just feel off,
yeah.
right? So I mean, we've all had that feeling where you meet somebody and you go, just something's off. I don't know what it is, but just something's off. Your frequencies are not matching. But
Okay.
then other times you'll come into contact with somebody where you start talking and it's like 3 hours have gone by and it feels like 10 minutes. Like, what happened? Because
Yeah.
you're on the same frequency. It's the same frequency is just a flow state. That's all
Okay.
it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whenever you feel like you're just in flow, you're working on a creative project, and all of a sudden you look up, 2 hours have gone by, and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Flow state.
Okay.
So really trying to just get into flow state. And so when we are, at our own being and we're embodied in our own frequency, our own energy, we're not disconnected and externalizing, looking outward,
Mhm.
automatically things are brought into our life. Synchronicities happen. You'll notice just these weird fated meetings. You'll stand at the grocery store and talk to somebody that it's like was a neighbor of a friend that just that whole small world concept comes
Yeah.
in. You
Okay.
start coming into contact with people that just have the knowledge that you need at that time, or can give you kind of, 2 cents to walk you forward with. And so this is just kind of where we meet people and we call in at a soul level these opportunities for us.
Yeah.
If our frequency is dipping down, then that usually means that either we have a mindset or a belief system that is lowering our frequency,
Yeah.
or we're in an environment that is lowering our frequency. And
Mhm.
that, again, if you are at already a higher consciousness and you go into a lower frequency environment, you're going to feel really irritated. Like
Okay.
you'll feel emotional, you'll feel like just wanting to crawl out of your skin. Like you just don't feel comfortable and you're like, I have to go home.
Yeah.
And that's the frequency is just not aligning. That's
Okay.
basically, yeah.
Okay. And even that would be even similar to like complete exhaustion after being in a certain environment and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. If you're ever talking with somebody and you get off the phone, and we've all had it, we get off the phone and you go, I'm completely drained. I just
Yeah.
had an hour conversation and I want to have a nap.
Yeah.
That is a really good feedback from your body that that person is probably not aligned with your energy and might be a little bit of an energy vampire, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So this is where our body is constantly giving us feedback, and we have to start to learn to listen to that.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to what we were first talking about of this inner knowing, our own intuition. And we so often we rationalize it, we deny it. It's like, but it's my best friend and I love them. And
Yeah, those soul contracts, they do end. I had one end, and you know what? It opened up doors that I didn't know were there. It hurt like hell. It sucked. I still miss the person, but it had to end.
yeah, and we're seeing that right now a lot. The energy that we're in right now, we have some transits that are happening that are really putting relationships into the limelight.
Yeah.
And a lot of relationships that are not aligned are being pulled out of our life.
Yeah.
And it is brutally painful. I've also gone through this recently with numerous people in my life, and it was the most heartbreaking thing that I think I've ever been through.
Mhm.
But a lot of times when the universe is trying to bring opportunities into our life, it can't come in if our table is full.
Nope.
Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes we need to clear spots at the table for new people to come and take a seat, new opportunities to come in. And this is really difficult for the human mind because we want to hold on to people we love.
Yeah.
And, it's even people we know are not meeting us at the level we need them to meet us at. It is brutally painful when that happens, but it's necessary. We're in this human life, we're either expanding or contracting.
Yeah.
And if we're constantly expanding, we need other people that are also expanding to meet us there. So if you're around somebody who's in a contracted state and they're holding on for dear life and they don't want to let anything go and they don't want to grow that's really difficult to be around if you're an expander.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's draining. So let's go back to intuition and how can people start to really connect with their intuition and start trusting it more? It's always there, but most of the times we don't trust it. So how do we get back to that?
Yeah, so I think that the more that you work with it, the stronger that it will get. And the trusting really comes from listening to it and acting upon it.
Okay.
Okay. So, for instance, if you had a friend and every single time you talk to that person, they told you, yeah, I'll be there Thursday at 3, and they don't show up.
Mm-hmm.
Or they say, yeah, I'll do that with you tomorrow, and they don't call.
Mm-hmm.
Would you keep trusting them?
No.
Like, no, we wouldn't.
Yeah.
But this is what we do to ourselves. We tell ourselves we're going to do something and we don't do it. Or we hear the inner knowing saying, you should make that phone call today, and we don't. And then it turns into this whole big ordeal that it didn't have to be in if we just would have made the phone call.
Yeah.
And so really we create suffering for ourselves by not listening to our intuition, and we create a disconnection to ourselves. And this is where the self-worth and self-esteem starts coming into, because we're not treating ourselves like our own best friend. So it starts with treat yourself like your own best friend. Show up for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? If you tell yourself every day that you're going to go to bed and be in bed by 10 p.m., do that for yourself, because your intuition is trying to give you this for a reason. Mm-hmm. So if you're starting to have the inner knowing, like, you know what, maybe I should journal when I'm having a coffee in the morning. Like, there's a reason you're feeling that way. So it first starts with treat yourself like your own best friend. Show up for yourself and start listening to these little pings and nudges that you're getting. Yeah. Because intuition speaks to you in a very subtle nudge. It's not coming with fear. It's not urgent. It's not loud. If you're ever getting a thing like, go, 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 do this now, that's not your intuition. That's your ego mind, and it's fear. Okay. Your intuition speaks to you in more, call this person. Why don't you journal in the morning? Yeah. It's very calm, just inner knowing. And it usually comes very often too, where you'll get the same thing over and over and over. And it's just a calling that just kind of never stops until you finally listen to it, of this, really subtle nudge in the background that feels like your brain is playing tricks on you. It gets kind of annoying, but this is where we have to start just listening to these little nudges, because they're leading you down a path, and it's like little breadcrumbs that your soul is dropping for you, going, come here, follow me here. So just listening to that, because every time that we listen to it, it gets stronger. Yeah. Every time that we listen to it, we'll have more confidence in ourselves, and we start to work with our own soul in a way to have this full self-trust, where now anybody externally would try and tell you something about yourself, and it just becomes laughable because you're so connected to your own knowing.
And then you have a stronger ability to stand your ground when you need to stand your ground, and be totally okay with being the outcast or the outsider, the one people don't understand, because you understand yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And this was where astrology really helped me. Was I felt like this kind of black sheep outcast, really just not. I was the person kind of growing up that I was kind of friends with every group, but not really in one group. So I would kind of bounce around like the little chameleon, where I could kind of chameleon myself, where I could talk to anybody from any walk of life and kind of relate to them. And I didn't really understand it, and it felt weird to me. I felt like I didn't belong. And then when I got into astrology and read my astrology chart, it was like opening this floodgate of, I was never meant to. I was never meant to fit in. And this is where I'm helping a lot of people right now, because a lot of people are coming to me and saying that to me of, I just feel weird right now. But we're in this shift of consciousness where a lot of us have come in with a soul mission to help the earth and humanity shift.
Yeah.
We cannot help anybody shift if we're sitting at the same frequency of them.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's important that we are different, that we are vibrating at a different frequency, that we are the weird geniuses coming in with these innovative ideas and saying things that nobody have ever said and doing things in a way nobody have ever done. It's important that we do that. And so I want everybody to kind of fly their freak flag and be a little weird and do them, because that is the most important thing that we can do right now for ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where all of this creativity and innovation will come from, as well as people returning to being comfortable with being that, the weird scientist or whatever that stood out, because that's the mission that they're on.
Yeah, 100%. And the more that we can get connected to our soul path, the easier this becomes for us.
Yeah.
Because we lock in, we start aligning, and then everything just flows naturally.
Yeah.
There's no resistance, because abundance and opportunities are constantly flowing to us. So it's not a matter of whether you're abundant or not. You are a spiritual being. You are abundant. It's a matter of how are you blocking it?
Yeah.
So this is where the more that we can connect with ourselves, we're removing the energetic blocks from this conditioning of years and years of societal conditioning, telling us that we should stay small and not be heard and not be seen and, be in fear. So we're removing all of these energetic blocks right now. And it's absolutely incredible to watch people bloom into who they're here to be.
Yeah, I love it. I'm here for all of that, because it's just seeing people take hold of the possibilities that are waiting for them is so much fun, because then now we get to actually cheer them on and encourage and help them grow where we can help them grow, and all the other things, right? And us too, because we're constantly growing and we're constantly expanding. And 6 months ago, I probably wouldn't have said I'm all for it, because I've gone through that expansion. I feel like I've gone through that expansion, and I'm on a new level, and I'm hopeful now. So I now ask you, looking ahead into 2025, 2026, what does your astrology charts and all of that kind of predict for us to be looking towards?
Yeah. Between 2024 and 2027 is the massive shift of consciousness of humanity. So by 2027, we're really in kind of a new world. at that point where we're in a completely different set of consciousness. 2025, we're going to have a number of the outer planets all change signs. And when the outer planets move, this is what really affects us. Because the inner planets, they move so fast, they're constantly kind of flying around the chart. They don't really make massive changes in our lives. But when the outer planets shift, we feel that. So even just having one change sign in a year is pretty massive, but we have numerous outer planets changing signs in 2025.
Oh, wow.
And so anybody who says that this isn't like universally aligned in divine timing, I would laugh at them, because there's no way that anything could align this better than the universe for this.
Yeah.
So really, this is why 2024 is a very kind of before and after period for us. 2025, it is a massive, massive shift in consciousness. And we're really going to see a lot of kind of everybody coming online in their own new way. A lot of leaders are going to be stepping forward in new ways. And so many of them are being prepared right now. They're kind of going through the trenches. They're coming out of their hermit mode, right? Because in order to kind of walk through this, everybody has a hermit or an isolated period that they go through. So a lot of people are in their preparation right now. And so in 2025 and 2026, we're going to see massive changes on the world stage. We're going to have a lot of technology advances, changes in the financial systems, changes in social media and internet. We're going to have medical cures starting to be released. And 2025 into 2026 is really a spiritual evolution for a lot of people, that we're going to start to notice a lot of people all of a sudden just getting into spirituality that have never really before thought. Maybe they thought it was woo-woo. I mean, when I was younger, I thought, all of this kind of stuff was totally woo-woo. But now we're really going to start to see all of our spirituality really come online in big ways. So this is going to be a fast shift. A lot of people think, well, 2026 and 2027 is still a far ways away, but it really isn't.
No.
And we're moving at such fast speeds now that the energy is speeding up. So the years are going fast. And I mean, the next few years are massive, massive changes. It's not even going to look the same to the world we live in now.
Really? Wow. For the better, right?
Absolutely for the better. We are going to have some events this year that do seem very scary for people. And the propaganda from the media is going to absolutely go on steroids over it, which is going to make people feel like the world is actually ending. There's a lot of people who are going to be in that frame of reference for it.
Yeah.
But this is why it's so important right now to really get connected internally so that you can see through this and understand that some of the events that are coming, they're for a purpose. From a 40,000 foot view, if we look at this from a soul view level, these are meaningful events that are coming, because the only way to shift an entire species of humans into a higher consciousness is to force them into their heart, right? It is the kind of the prerequisite to get into a higher consciousness is you have to move them through their heart. And so forcing people to take responsibility and forcing empathy back into them, that only comes through pain. So, people are going to be kind of forced to their knees in some ways, and it's meaningful. But this is why so many of us have to be on the front line as those guides, that when these events happen, we can kind of stand up and say, hey, like, there's a better way to move about this. We can move through this together. And this is where humanity is really going to lock arms and start to move forward together.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So intuition, trust, having faith, all of those things, and operating from the heart instead of from the brain.
100%. Our brain has no idea what to do right now. Our logical mind is lost. Okay.
There's just too much going on. It's like we can't take it in and process it at the speed that it's coming at us. And we're not designed to do that.
Exactly. And we're moving forward now in a sense of feeling and trusting our intuition. And so our logical mind wants to make sense of it all. It wants all the answers. It wants to know every single step from A to Z. But we're moving at quantum speeds now where we're actually skipping steps. So if you're aligned and you're connected to your own frequency, you'll move like A to Z or A to M, right? You're not going to go A, B, C, D, like your logical mind wants to know. So your logical mind will slow you down right now. And it'll really keep you stuck and stagnant. So it's important to integrate that with trusting at where you want to go and allowing your logical mind to catch up later.
Yeah. Good. Amazing. Lori, I think we could talk forever, but I'm sure you've got other things to get to in the rest of your day. So I want to say thank you so much for coming on here, and perhaps maybe we'll consider bringing you back into the fall, winter of this coming year, just so we can have another insight into what we can look ahead and maybe help people better understand as we move through all of this stuff as well.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the opportunity to come and chat with you today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to help people in these ways and to give them some sense of understanding and clarity of why we're feeling what we're feeling right now.
Yeah. And I think it's important in providing just that education and point of contact for people so that, I mean, if they have more questions or they want to learn more, they can reach out to you. So where can they find you?
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram at Lori Hollick or on Twitter at Lori_Hollick.
Okay. Beautiful. And yeah, thank you so much. We will connect again in the future for sure.
Absolutely, we will. Thank you so much.
Thank you.